What's up, guys? The Comics Kid 2099 here. Today, I wanted to talk to you about an idea that I had for if I was writing the Fantastic Four comic books. I used to do videos like this about 3-ish years ago. I did a couple for the Fantastic Four. I did one for Doctor Strange, one for Thor. I think I did one for the X-Men, and I hadn't done one in a while, and I thought it would be fun to talk to you about one of my ideas, because I'm probably never going to be working for Marvel Comics, so I think it's okay for me to just give these ideas away and let you know what I think would be pretty cool to see in a Fantastic Four comic. Now, this is actually technically two separate ideas that I'm kind of rolling together into one, because individually I don't think these ideas were necessarily worth doing an entire video on, but together I thought, well, maybe this is something that people would want to see. But I'll let you guys be the judge of that. So a few years ago, I don't remember if it was Matt Fraction or Jonathan Hickman, but it was when the Future Foundation became a thing in the comics. It was kind of sort of a school that the Fantastic Four was affiliated with. And you had characters like Dragon Man, a few of the Mole Man's creations. You had one of the members from Power Pack was there. I think later on, Artie and Leech from the X-Men comics were part of it. Basically, it was a weird, fantastic school that was associated with the Fantastic Four. And I would want to bring that back. Now, I have not read a lot of recent Fantastic Four stuff, so I don't know what officially happened to the Future Foundation. I don't know if it's still part of what's going on in the current run of Fantastic Four books. The Fantastic Four just recently returned in the last few months, so I don't know if they got rid of the Future Foundation and tried to go back to basics with the Fantastic Four, but I think the idea of having a school associated with the Fantastic Four is a pretty cool idea. Now, you may be saying, well, we've already got the X-Men, and that is, since the very beginning, that has been a school for weird people to go and do their weird stuff while also do school stuff. So you don't really have to have that with the Fantastic Four. And there was even an issue of Wolverine and the X-Men set in the future where Wolverine mentions, you know, hey, the X-Men, we were the ones who did that first. Now you got all these other schools for weird people, but we were the ones who did it first. And yeah, that is part of the X-Men's DNA, but I think you can do it with the Fantastic Four and make it just different enough that it doesn't have to infringe on what the X-Men is doing. For one, I think that if you're going to have a bunch of kids affiliated with the Fantastic Four, either doing their school stuff in the Fantastic Four's headquarters or doing it somehow separate from the Fantastic Four's headquarters, but they're still affiliated with the team, I think you could do it where these guys are not superheroes. That is, from what I can tell, the big difference between the Future Foundation and the X-Men, is that all these kids who were studying with the Fantastic Four, the Mole Man characters, Artie and Leech, the Power Pack Kid, none of them were actually superheroing on the side while they were doing their school stuff. But with the X-Men, that always happens. Even in the 80s, whenever the New Mutants were supposed to just be students at the school, they were always doing superhero stuff. So I think that you could have the Fantastic Four, the main team, they could be doing the weird adventure stuff, and then on the side, you could also have the Future Foundation going on, where these kids are learning, and it just happens to be that there is a dragon android there that's one of the teachers. I think that you could do that, add a little bit of weirdness spice to the comic, make things just a little bit more unusual than your normal, average, ordinary comic. The other idea that I would be rolling into this would be adding a brand new character to the Fantastic Four series. You have probably heard of the X-Men adversary Mojo. Now, this is a character that I don't actually care for that much. Anytime Mojo shows up, I kind of roll my eyes. But if you don't read the X-Men comics, if you don't know anything about Mojo, he's basically this very large alternate reality creature thing. He is in charge of this dimension where entertainment is what makes everything go around. And they do lots of television stuff. At one point, he created a whole bunch of clones of the X-Men that were X-Babies. And basically, they were child versions of the X-Men. And they show up every now and then, not very often, especially within the past 20 years, but every now and then you'll see the X-Babies. And I have always thought that it would be interesting if Mojo did this with some of the other characters of the Marvel Universe. And this is where I would be rolling one of these characters into the Future Foundation as a student who would be kind of affiliated with the Fantastic Four. And I would be introducing / creating the Toddler Torch. This is not a very innovative idea. It's not a fantastic name, no pun intended, but I figured that if you introduce a clone of one of the Fantastic Four, maybe he escapes from the Mojoverse, or maybe the other three toddler Fantastic Four members, maybe something happened to them and they stayed behind, but Todd Torch goes to Earth and says, hey, I escaped. What do I do now? I feel like this would give Johnny Storm the opportunity to kind of mature a little bit. And this is something I've talked about before. Johnny Storm, depending on which creator is writing him, he acts like he's 15 years old, or he acts like he's in his 30s. You look at the John Byrne run, he's not really that immature or hot-headed, pun definitely intended that time. He doesn't really act that way, but then if you look at the Mark Waid run that came about 15 years later, he's quite a bit more immature. He acts a good 10 years younger than he did in the Byrne run, and so I feel like this would be a good way to kind of advance him a little bit so that he's not quite as level-headed and mature as he was in the John Byrne run, but he wouldn't necessarily be as goofy and laid back and lazy as he was sometimes in the Mark Waid run. Basically, imagine a movie, 3 men and a baby, but just 1 man and 1 baby. So Johnny Storm kind of feels responsible for this clone of his. Technically, he didn't do anything to create this child, but he feels like he kind of needs to look out for this little guy because he's a younger, even more immature version of himself. And maybe seeing the Todd Torch in action would make him think, ooh, I need to kind of mature up a little bit. And then the Todd Torch, he would be hanging out with some of the other weird students at the Future Foundation. And you don't even have to call it the Future Foundation if you don't want to, because sometimes I hate it whenever you have an idea in a series and then they get rid of that idea and then later on they bring back that idea again. For example, in the X-Men comics, Angel, he's normal skin color, then he's blue, then he's normal, then he's blue again, then he's normal and blue, and they just keep going. It's a cycle that's never going to end. So you wouldn't have to call it the Future Foundation if you feel like that would be a little bit regressive, but you could have some sort of weird, unusual school affiliated with the Fantastic Four. And I think that having the Todd Torch be a fixture of this academy would be an interesting way that you could develop Johnny Storm's personality a little bit. Now, unfortunately, this is probably something they could very easily dispose of and say, okay, Todd Torch goes back to Mojoverse because we don't like this character, and we're going to have Johnny Storm going back to being an immature idiot. So this is something that wouldn't permanently change the character, but I think that it would be very interesting to see how this would affect Johnny in keeping him in proximity to the team, but he wouldn't be a 5th member of the team that would be going on adventures with him, because that would get very irritating after a while. So those are my thoughts on what I would do if I was writing the Fantastic Four. Let me know if you want to see more videos like this in the future. I would love to do them, but unfortunately these ideas are limited. Sometimes I can't think of what I would do if I was writing the Hulk or whatever. So you may not see videos like this for a while, but if you like these videos, let me know in the comments below, and I will see you guys later in the future with more videos. In the meantime, have a great rest of your day. Catch you later.